Hello, goedemorgen, bonjour. I'm Iris.
And I'm Daniel.
Hello everyone.
Witam wszystkich.
Dzień dobry.
Madame et messieurs, bonjour à vous tous.
Keep me the false. My name is Ruth.
And my name is Rachel Fowl.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant morning for you.
If you look on the map on the southern eastern side of Europe, you will see a fish coming out of the Black Sea. That fish is Romania.
In light of recent events in Paris, there is an even more demanding need to promote the light of education in opposition to the darkness of illiteracy. What better example than Greece itself? As the groundbreaker of law, art and democracy, our country was the first to believe in secularism, in education and in justice, providing the foundation of what we call Western civilization.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mustafa, and I'm a Turkish-speaking Cypriot.
And I'm Eleni, and I'm a Greek-speaking Cypriot. We are teenagers from the Cyprus Friendship Program, which is a bi-communal peace organization which brings together students from both communities. Originally, you would think that I would have to hate him because he's from the other side of the island, but I don't, because we're friends.
What we're doing today, and in the European Union in general, where we learn to accept the differences and work together for solutions in our world.
Once, Portugal was the biggest empire in the world, and now we are facing an economical, social, and political crisis.
And that's why our school is so important. Every day, our teachers share a message with us, a message based upon equality,
Freedom,
trust,
hope,
friendship,
and union.
So, we would like to share this simple but strong message with you too. And the message is?
We are the people of tomorrow, and that's why we can make the difference and change the world. Don't forget that.
Thank you very much. Because of the horrible events which happened in Paris on the 13th of November, only 8 people are representing our school today. Even though the attacks were a shock for everybody, we think that it is important to set a sign that the European Union and its idea are much more powerful than every terroristic organization. Freedom is the highest property, and every human deserves it.
I am a member for Austria. I'm from the new Austrian Liberal Forum, so we're part of the Liberal group, and since 2014, so the beginning of this parliamentary term, I've been a member of the European Parliament. Following the terrible attacks in Paris on the 30th of November, how are you going to avoid tension when it comes to taking in refugees?
Well, quite honestly, I do not see a connex between refugees having the right to apply for asylum and terrorist attacks that are just criminal acts that have to be stopped in any case. So I simply don't see how this context can be seriously done, and I do refuse to put this onto the same level. I gave a speech this week on the summit of Valletta, and I put this also in my speech very clearly, that this mixing up of asylum seekers with criminals, and especially terrorists and terrorist attacks, is extremely poisonous, extremely dangerous, and it's just wrong.
I would like to ask about solidarity that has previously mentioned. Well, clearly, solidarity can only be maintained in the long term if people see that the refugee crisis is being approached fairly throughout Europe. So since the state of affairs in which only a handful of member states shoulder the entire burden, as happens today, is unsustainable, how can we guarantee a common European code of asylum so as to overcome the problems arised? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. And in fact, I have to tell you that we do face a lack of solidarity, not just among member states, but also within member states. And I can tell you this as an Austrian, that we have a similar problem that we are faced with in the European level among different member states that just try to opt out and try to hide away and hope that the problem will disappear. We also have this on a very concrete level, on the nation-state level, let's put it that way, where Länder or municipalities just try not to be involved and not share the burden. At the end of the day, I think solidarity is a concept that one and each of us can only live as a person individually and show to others. And in this way, we show and try to convince people that it helps all of us, and that we all gain from it. Because otherwise, you know, if you are alone, but if we are many, it's much easier to overcome obstacles.
Hello, my name is Hazel and I'm from Ireland, and I would like to ask the Union what is their opinion on the lack of global equal representation of women, especially in politics?
Thank you very much for your question. We are being faced with this problem on a daily basis, and at the moment there is one government on this planet where you have complete parity, which is Canada. So there is, you know, a state that showed and proved that it is possible to achieve this goal if you are willing and if you are, you know, trying hard to do it. So I can only tell you that I will do all that I can to improve the level of female participation, because I honestly think that it is important to be represented, and that we do have a bit of a different view to the world as women.
And I'd like to ask, what is the relationship between European Union and USA, and if the economical and political power of the United States influences the decisions of the European Union?
Well, no. Very simple answer. This is not, I mean, it's not that we also as concretely, as a member of European Parliament, I'm not under the influence of anybody, and definitely not under the influence of the US or any other economic power on this planet. However, I mean, I would also like to state clearly that, I mean, this is my personal point of view, also the point of view of my political group, that a good relationship with the United States is in our interest. And I am a big fan, and I think it would be very important for us to negotiate a very good trade agreement, a free trade agreement between the European Union and the United States. However, we have to be aware that the United States are a very strong negotiating partner, and we do have to be a strong partner as well. And we are the bigger market. It's the European Union that is the bigger and stronger market in comparison to the US market. So let's not be defensive in this context, but let's think about what is in our interest and go for it.
If the EU wants to welcome refugees, then why not propose a safer way for refugees to enter Europe without the help of traffickers?
What you're proposing is, as we call it, a humanitarian corridor, so that people don't have to take any, you know, risky ways over the sea or with traffickers and pay lots and huge amounts of money. I completely agree with you. This has been a suggestion of the European Parliament since the beginning of this year, and it would be the only right thing to do. There are concrete proposals on the table. We could do this more or less immediately. You know, the member states have embassies in the region. You could maybe say the embassies of the member states in Lebanon can open the embassies and issue, for example, visas there. So people could take a safe trip by plane that would not cost 7,000 or 8,000 euros, but maybe 400 euros. So I completely agree with you. It would be way more organized and it would be way more humane.
We've mentioned the refugee crisis and Ebola, neither of which the EU acted upon until it was directly affecting us. And I was just wondering what the EU's stance is on assistance given to countries outside the EU, to what extent we see it as the EU's responsibility, or do we see it as a responsibility of the EU?
I can give you a very clear answer. Me personally, I do see it as the responsibility of the European Union, but the member states don't. Please make no mistake, this is not a problem of the European Union not acting. It is a problem of the member states not handing over the responsibility to the level of the European Union. All these issues that you mentioned, Ebola concretely and asylum and migration, is within the competence of the member states. And apparently and clearly they are failing to solve the issue, but they are not willing to hand it over to another level, because we can only, I think it is clear to everybody that not one single member state can solve one of these issues. We could only solve it, I say could, only solve it as as the union, but the member states are not willing to hand it over. So, you know, complain to your governments, because I do complain to them as well.
Well, thank you indeed. It's been a particular honour and privilege. Well, I'm sitting in the presidential chair here, which I've never done before, so that's a very interesting take on the European Parliament. So thank you very much indeed for the interest you've shown in the work of the Parliament and for these very interesting and very good questions. And I must say that I'm very impressed by the fact that so many young women have asked to put a question. Thank you.
Our first resolution was that more money needs to be invested in producing renewable forms of energy. Moreover, we concluded that the most suitable form of energy should be chosen for each area in Europe. For example, in general, we agreed that hydro and wind energy would be most suitable in northern countries, while solar energy would be suitable in the south. We also concluded that these forms of energy should be made cheaper and easier to use. Our second resolution was that we need to invest in educating people about renewable energy, in particular children. We also decided that scholarships for college courses, for courses which would be researching renewable forms of energy, should be invested in. Those are the two main conclusions we came to, so thank you for listening.
Why would you give scholarships? What is the point of giving scholarships? Because I think you're doing about environment and renewable energy. So what would the role of the scholarships really be? Thank you.
Well, I think just to clarify on that point, the idea behind the scholarships was that it would encourage people to study courses which would benefit the renewable energy sector. So courses into researching forms of renewable energy, into researching methods of converting oil, vegetable oil for cars, courses which would kind of promote jobs and innovation in the renewable energy sector. So it would be to encourage people to go into these areas and to get more people involved and to make this a bigger area of work and of concern for people. And so the scholarships would be an incentive for people to take on these courses.
So, as said, we discussed 3 questions, and the first question was, to what extent is the European Union responsible for the development of non-EU countries? Everyone in the group agreed that it is our responsibility to provide help and assistance to countries outside the EU who are undeveloped or recovering from natural disasters or a crisis. In terms of the financial crisis affecting our financial involvement in external development, the majority of our group were of the opinion that, even with the recession, that we should not reduce the aid we give. No matter how badly off we are, in 99% of cases, countries in the third world are doing a lot worse. We mentioned that there's plenty of luxury we can give up as opposed to cutting our spending of aid. There were also a minority of the opinion that we should reduce our aid until the EU is financially stable. However, our overall decision was to keep our current aid involvement. The whole group unanimously said that our aid should be focused on education and trade. As they say, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for life. We discussed the need for trade agreements with developing countries to increase their employment and their economy. Not only would this benefit them, but it would also benefit us as we would have more trading partners. Thank you for listening.
I was wondering, what about the economically unstable countries within the European Union? How are you considering handling these?
What we said as a group is that even though the EU may be struggling in a financial crisis at the moment, if you think about, in development terms, countries in the third world, they are a lot worse off than us. And even in terms of those who, obviously there are different extents of which countries are struggling and which aren't. But the thing is, when we're giving aid from the EU, it's coming from the EU, not from these countries specifically. So we felt that it's still important to keep up this level of aid, to give it to the third world countries, because they are in more desperate need of it than the vast majority of us.
For unity, we decided that everybody should be working together, almost like a clockwork. This way, everybody would have their own kind of job to do in the economy. As a result, there wouldn't be a decrease of jobs, so unemployment could go down. For education, we decided that there should be standards to be made. For example, most people, everybody, would have to stay in school until 18. This way, everybody would get an equal education. As well, we decided that internships should be required in school. This way, people would be getting ready for jobs in the future. The other problem we discussed is that school can be quite expensive, as many people have to buy their own books. If we increase the budget, then the students would not have to buy their own books, and the school could provide the books for the students.
I want to ask about the books. You are saying to increase the budget. In public school, the books are free, and they're only expensive in the private ones, which they're not subsidizing from the EU. So what do you mean exactly?
Well, I know we discussed that not every country is like that, because the school I'm in right now in Spain, I have to buy my own books. Thankfully, the program I'm with, AFS, pays for all the books I need. But unlike my fellow students, they have to pay for every book that the school says they need. So for students that do not have that much money, they won't be able to earn the same education as others that are more fortunate and can actually buy the books.
Social media is spreading really fast these days due to the improvement of modern technology, and social media is accessible to everybody. Everybody is using it, and the information that spreads really fast, spreads like a fire and reaches a lot of people in a very short amount of time. This could be wonderful, but sometimes false information could be spread and could construct a false social opinion on a certain problem, or could impact the opinions of the public negatively because it's false, because it's not truthful, and the real information, the real news is lost somewhere on the way through the web. What we think is a way to probably not remove all the negative impacts that false or too subjective information has on the public opinion is better education. People receiving the information, if they understand the political situation in their country, if they understand the social structure of their society, they would understand the information they receive better. They would be more doubtful. They would be more reasonable in their judgment, and would have a wider perspective and form better and argumented points of view. This is why it is very important to start social educations in school, so that education starts there, people are informed about their rights, about the society they live in, the political environment, so that they could, of course, continue to educate and try to reach other points of view outside of school.
So are you suggesting anything else than education? Because educating the new kids will only develop the new generation, but how about the generation now that's being
Generations live together, so if you spread an idea through one generation, it is inevitable that it would influence all the others. It may happen slowly. I'm not such an optimist to believe that everything could change in a moment, but it influences the whole society.
About the integration of immigrants, advisors such as psychological advisors that talk their own language, that could help them get through the tough process of living in a new country and getting past the trauma that they've been living in their home country. A modification of the quota system is one of the most important things that we discussed. The modification is regarding the division of the refugees, the number of the refugees assigned to each country. This will be done considering the unemployment rate, the GDP, and the number of inhabitants of each European country. Also, we want to create hotspots at the border countries in the crisis zones or within the already existing embassies in the affected countries, where the refugees could apply for asylum directly to the country they want to flee to without leaving their own home. After their request is accepted, they will be offered safe transportation to their country. Thank you.
I completely agree with you that we have to help these people, but can we do that without letting them to enter in Europe? Can we do that in their country? Because they're very different from us, and the socialization would be very difficult, and that's a comical problem.
When discussing our resolution, we took into consideration that in Europe fled already over 700,000 refugees, and we also have to deal with those. And regarding reinforcing and doing something in the existing crisis zone, we already mentioned the hotspots. So the hotspots will be already in their countries, at the embassies or at the border countries, so they can apply there for asylum to come to Europe. Other than that, European Union can't use army force to intervene in the Syrian war.
So after the debates and the votes, we have kept 4 resolutions. The first one is having in every European country your orientation advisors in school to help the students finding a job, and having lessons in school to help people writing CV, etc. The second one is making it a must for every European country having a minimum wage for young people. By young people, we mean from 16 to 25. The third one is having a European qualification that certified a common level. It would make it easier to go working in another country. And the last one is less labor cost for the employers taking young people in their companies. So it means that the young people are financially more attractive to them. And to finish, because I know that you're going to ask it, we have seen that the situation in Europe about this subject are very different, so don't be surprised if maybe things are already done in your country, because it is not in every country.
You said we need a common level to get work in abroad easily, but what do you mean with a common level, and what kind of level are we talking about?
Oh, okay. So by saying a common level, common qualification, we're meaning that we want every European citizen, every European youth to go over somewhere else in Europe and work there. But in order to make that, we have to have an equal qualification everywhere. So we decided to announce something new. Just one qualification, accepted all over Europe. So if you're not finding the job that you're looking for in Spain, you can go to France or Cyprus or Italy.